Welcome to today's Wendy Wisdom. We're doing daily quick lives, celebrating our launch of our I Have Your Back plan, which started this week. Today's our last day. Glad you're here. Today, we're going to rock your interviews with the outer game. So let's get started. Are you in an active job search? You're applying for jobs, hearing the crickets. The ATS is eating your resume. Go find my video on the real deal on ATSs. You finally get an interview, then you get ghosted or rejected. You can't find a recruiter to find you a job, which once again, go find that myth busting video. Raise your hand if this is you. You're running out of cash. You need the job now. You're struggling to get interviews. When you get them, you never make it to the next round. Or if you're one of those really, really lucky people, and I mean that sarcastically, you keep making it to the final round and still don't get the job. If that's you, drop a rejected in the comments or send me a DM and say, Wendy, I'm over the rejection. The good news is there are jobs that need what you have to offer. There are ways to make your LinkedIn profile more magnetic. You can learn how to make recruiters happy or how to get along with them, or maybe just learn what their actual job is. You can squash those crickets with your passions and interests. You can master the inner game of rocking your interviews. You can. You could get in the driver's seat and rock the outer game of rocking your interviews. And here's the really exciting part. Right now is the best time, the most wonderful time of the year, like the song says, to be job hunting, in part because most people are making the mistake of taking a holiday nap. So you have way less competition for all those start on January 2nd jobs. How great is that? The bad news is you only have 5 weeks left to land that job before the new year. Your job search is expensive. It's costing you thousands every month, and that builds on itself. And so month after month, then the $5,000 a month that you're missing out on if you make 60K, the 10,000 at 120, the 15,000 at 180, that's 5 plus 5 plus 5. That's 10 plus 10 plus 10. That's 15 plus 15 plus 15. That's credit. That's 401ks. It's bad stuff. You need to make the most of your time. You need to make the most of every application. You need to make the most of every view of your LinkedIn profile, and you need to make the most of every interview. And you really need to be able to stand out in a competitive market. All this job search stress takes a toll on your health, your family, your happiness, your career path. All because you are not using tools that are available to you to get on the fastest path to your next job. What if instead of struggling, you started applying to jobs that are a great fit with a resume that clearly states that you can do exactly what they need done? What if you started getting interviews and rocking them, picking up those guitars and rocking those interviews? What would that be like? How would it feel? What would getting that job offer mean to your health, to your finances, to your family, to you? If you are ready to start getting and rocking your interviews and getting an offer and landing that job, drop me a job in the comments or send me a DM and say, Wendy, I am ready. I am really ready. Now, let's get clear on why you might want to listen to me about rocking your interviews. It is not because I know how to play those guitars. I am not a rock musician. I'm not a country musician. I'm not a blues musician. I'm not a soul musician. I'm not jazz either. I was a classical piano student. I'm a classical choral soprano. So no cool rock vibes from me. So it's not about the rock. The reason you want to listen to me about interviews is that I have conducted 12,000 interviews in my career. 12,000 interviews. I've taught hundreds of hiring managers and recruiters how to conduct interviews. I've designed interview processes and scoring rubrics and talent strategy at dozens of companies. I've hired more than 1,000 people in my career. I scaled a fintech startup from employee 23 to employee 500 and a $100 million exit. That's why you're listening. Now let's talk about what we're going to learn today. Before we dive into the steps to take to rock your interviews, let's get some backstory. There is an inner game and an outer game to rocking your interviews. Most people only talk about the outer game, and that's what we're going to focus on today. But I want you to know that the inner game is at least as important as the outer game. So if you missed yesterday's inner game live, go grab it. I'm wearing a Zendesk t-shirt with the logo with the meditating Buddha. So find that. It was yesterday. Go grab it. Now, let's dive into the outer game. Remember, every element of the interview, every answer is all about them. Every answer. It's all about them. It's not about you. No matter what they ask, your answers need to tell them the things they need to know to answer the questions most important to them, so they know that you can step into the role and perform. So answer the questions honestly and accurately, yes, and make sure you highlight the things they need and want to know, not random other stuff. Remember, you get to ask your questions too, and this is where it gets tricky because it's kind of sort of about you. You're asking them questions, right? But it's also still about them. More on that later. Step 2. Let's dive in with the best and worst questions you will get asked. Ironically, most people will ask you what I consider to be, in my significant experience, we'll call the 12,000 interviews, the worst question. When I advise tech startups on their talent strategy, I frequently interviewed candidates for them. And if the candidate had applied, as opposed to the candidate responding to outreach from a hiring manager or a recruiter, I would start my interviews with the best question. Nobody was expecting this as the first question, let me tell you. And even if people are a bit more normal than me, they might ask the best question near the end of the interview, not at the beginning. I asked it up front. First thing out of my mouth, other than, hi, how are you today? You still want to rock it no matter when they ask it. So the best question, why us? Prep that answer. You're into them because you're into them because their product, you're into them because their customer, you're into them because their mission, and why you love them. Because this is all about them. So you demonstrate that you know them, you see them, you love them, because you are their perfect match. If you don't, then you've blown an opportunity to demonstrate why you are a perfect fit. Sometimes people would say to me, because I need a job. That's not the right answer. We all know you need a job. We get that. We need jobs too. But that's not the right answer to that question. Now, what's the worst question? In my opinion, after 12,000 interviews, it's tell me about yourself. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant now. This is the worst question from the perspective of the employer, because the average interviewee will answer that question by rambling for the next 15 minutes, telling their life story. And the interviewer won't learn anything valuable that will help them make a decision about whether to hire the candidate. Now, of course, you're getting coached by me, so you're not going to ramble. And if you get asked the question, your first thought's going to be, oh, well, Wendy didn't train their team how to do interviews. That's the first thing you're going to think. And you're going, okay. And then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to tell them the things they need and want to know. Nothing extra. Tell them things about you that are most relevant to them, probably about 3 things. Because your job is to help them see that you are a great fit for them. If you tell your entire bio, even just a bunch of irrelevant parts of your bio, you are wasting your time and doing nothing to help you rock your interview. Step 2, you want to create star stories for every bullet in the job description. Create a star story for every one of them. And then if you haven't done the thing in one of the bullets, we'll talk about that in step 3. Now, the reason you're going to do that is because they want to know, can you do this thing and get results? The best way to tell them that is to tell them a story where you did the thing and got the results. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? But so many people miss this. If you don't tell them a story where you say, in this situation, I had this job, this task, this objective, I took this action, I got this result, STAR. They're not going to know that you can do this thing and get results. And that is actually the purpose of the interview. Step 3. Create a story for every bullet where you haven't done the thing. And hot tip, this is where you prioritize your prep time. So you haven't done the thing in this bullet. Come up with something as close as possible to the thing in the bullet and craft that story. Because most of the time when you haven't done exactly that thing, you've done something really, really similar. Tell that story and own it. And do not tell them, no, I haven't done that, but. I interviewed somebody once. They said no, but 4 times in the interview. I normally did not give free coaching at the end of interviews. My job was to teach a team at the company how to build a talent strategy and an interview process and figure out who they needed to hire, what level of funding, and pick the right talent. That was my job. But this guy was actually a really good fit for the job. But he sure as heck couldn't communicate it in the interview. And at the end of it, I said, I'm going to give you some free coaching. Never answer an interview question, no, but. Ever. Okay. So, here's a good example. I was coaching a client on interview prep recently. And a nice to have in this job was fluency in Spanish. He is not fluent in Spanish. He has never led a project where Spanish was one of 2 languages used. But he's led multiple projects involving the use of 2 languages he doesn't speak at all. That's his story. So, can I handle multilingual situations? Yes. Here's how I've done it. But wait, there's more. If you haven't done anything at all similar to this thing, well, first of all, that should be rare because you're applying to jobs you're qualified for. And if you were reached out to by a recruiter to talk to them about a job, if they've done their job, they kind of sort of should know that you're generally qualified. But, so, just in case you haven't done anything close to that bullet, you tell a star story where in a past job, you had to do a thing you'd never, ever done before. And you learned fast on the job and got it done, got the result. So if you haven't come anywhere close to doing that thing in that bullet, you tell a star story about a time in another job where you had to do a thing that you had never dreamed of doing, never done before, and you learned fast on the job and got the result. If you don't do this, you are asking them to reject you. Don't do that. You've worked too hard to get that interview. Now, step 4, we have 4 steps today. Step 4, prep your questions. You need 3 to 5 questions, prioritize them and ask them in order. The most important one first. Ask questions that will get you intel on what is most important to them. And questions that build rapport with the interviewer. Because even when you're asking questions, it is about them, not you. Now, we're going to take that intel and we're going to evaluate, if I get an offer, do I actually want to work here? But don't ask questions where you ask them to describe their culture. You're wasting your breath. No company, no hiring manager is self-aware enough to give you an accurate answer. Trust me. There are ways to get at that with smart, open-ended questions. Don't ask questions about benefits, because that is all about me. I don't really care about the work. I don't care about whether I'm qualified. I don't care about you. I just want to know what's in it for me. You're not sending that message. Now, we're going to really look at that offer letter and the benefits and do everything we can to actually be able to be comparing 2 offers and figure out what's actually best for you. But the interview is not a time to ask about benefits. So you don't ask about benefits. You don't ask questions about their culture. You ask questions that get you intel about what's most important to them, and you ask open-ended questions that will build rapport and get you information about the company that is not biased by whatever their talking points are about their culture. Now, I said we had 4 steps. We actually have 5. Once you draft these questions, practice. And here's an Inner Game of Rocking Your Interviews teaser for those of you who weren't here yesterday. In case you've never heard me do a training on the Inner Game of Rocking Your Interviews, practice, please, 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 with a nonverbal living being who loves the sound of your voice. Dogs and babies are king of the hill in this category. Cats are your next best. And if you don't have any of them, if you have access to some other animal that will respond to your voice, it's probably not a fish. You do that. I've had a client where it was a horse. And if you don't have any living, breathing beings, then you take a picture. You have a framed picture or a picture on your phone or your computer of, if you were blessed to have a grandparent in your life who was one of those people who was just filled with love for you, you want to be looking at them when you practice. But ideally, a living, breathing creature that does not speak. You practice your answers. You start with the best and worst questions. You start with the bullets that you don't have a experience doing. You have an adjacent experience or I learn on the job experience. You do those first. Then you do all the rest in priority order. Practice. So, want more on that kind of inner game stuff, as I said yesterday, check it out. Now, are you ready to get on the fastest path to your next job or next promotion? Drop me a Rock Your Interviews outer game or an outer game. Rock Your Interviews is too long. Outer game in the comments. Send me a DM. I'll get you the cheat sheet. And let's talk about what's really going on in the job search world. The job market is scary. And that's now, well, most job seekers are taking the holidays off and they're having a long winter nap. They are sipping their eggnog. They're eating their Christmas cookies. And in January, they'll be back at it. And they'll be applying to all the jobs. And so the number of people applying is just going to be this insane number. And you'll have a lot more competition. Here's the good news. Now is the best time. Now it is possible to get on the best path to your next job. And when you do this, you'll apply to jobs that are a good fit for what you want and what you have to offer. And when you do that, you will start getting interviews and rocking those interviews and landing offers. If you want the details of my I Have Your Back plan for your holiday job hunt and all the goodies that I've cooked up for you, start now if you're smart, start in January if you want. Reach out in the DMs today. And I'll share all the holiday goodness I'm including, and you'll get to be a part of that. And we'll get you on the fastest path to your next job. Because what we want is a job under the tree for Christmas. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I look forward to hearing from you.